How's life in the slow lane? Said a customer to me over the bar as I poured silky smooth milk into third wave espresso. I knew not what he meant, and thus could not respond accordingly. So I offered a nod and what I hoped was a smile. But that last part, who knows? This was years ago, and I still pondered what this man saw in me that prompted him to ask this inane question. It was quiet, detailed, and incredibly focused on each drink that I was making. Maybe this is a question I was never meant to answer. It's years later. At the beginning of the year, I bought 4 books with the intent to read them at whatever pace I wanted. I made a video about this, maybe posted back in March, going over the 4 books that I had gotten. It's nearly August, and I realized as I am now only halfway through the second book, Open City by Teju Cole, that I like to take my time, especially with things that I do with purpose or that I enjoy. Maybe it's not even that. Maybe I'm just slow. Maybe that's what he meant. Slow in movement, by the way, if I needed to clarify. There is no impressive TBR, to be read list. On my end, there's no race to get in the most in before the end of the year. I don't even know if I'll finish these 4 books. And it's not to say that I'm only sticking to these 4 books. It can change. I've actually been reading this book, Dreyer's English, which my sister gave me to read, and I am 75 pages in. It's an interesting read, but I'm not opposed to adding or removing things from my potential list if they are kind of not working for me. But I do have a curiosity, a genuine question, if anyone can answer. What is the interest in completing lengthy reading lists per year? Because for me, so I finished We Have Always Lived in a Castle by Shirley Jackson quite quickly, actually, within like 4 days. And I loved it so much that as soon as I finished reading, I immediately started reading it again. I got halfway through before I found out that it was a movie, and I watched it. Make of that what you will. And then I started transcribing this book into another little notebook because I enjoyed it so much. All of that before I even started on this book, wondering how somebody who may complete a reading list that is quite large, maybe let's say 50 books. Is that large? I'm not sure. I've never read 50 books in a year. I think the most I've done is like 10 or 12. But anyway, just wondering how you remember or find meaning or connect with the book that you're reading besides just reading it. Or maybe that's all it is for you. I'm not sure, because when I truly enjoy something I don't want to let it go. And I remember I could have finished this book in like 2 days, but because I was enjoying it so much, I was forcing myself to read it much slower and to really take my time, and I didn't want it to end. And then when it did, I still came back and found myself wanting to be immersed in the story again by transcribing it. But maybe that's a one-off. Maybe you do come across a book like that, and that one you do stick with. But for the rest of them, it's just reading and enjoyment and on to the next one. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Can anyone describe that to me? Let me know. Anyway, for me, what I thought was multitasking was just me being half there. I prefer to do things one at a time. And yes, this literally looks like me completing my salad before I've even put the meat on the stove to cook. There's other examples, but that's the one that sticks with me right now because it's getting to be about when I break for lunch and I'm getting hungry. It's taken me longer to finish this book, Open City. There are several factors to this, namely that this book is not plot-based. It's just kind of a series of events as the main character navigates through cities and experience. There's no thrill. There's no like what's going to happen next. No suspense. I could stop reading it. I'm definitely not averse to putting down a book that I just don't enjoy. It feels different than not liking it. I don't know how to put my finger on it, but it's hard to get into, but then once I'm reading, it's like quietly enjoyable. But it doesn't really hold my attention for all that long. It's something I'm not forcing. And will that look like me choosing eventually not to finish this one? Maybe. I mean, I've gotten now a bit more than halfway, so it would kind of feel like I should just finish it, but also there is no should in this game. There is only do or do not do. What is the fate of this novel for my reading list? My very small reading list. I don't like to pile things on my plate and call it productivity. And I think maybe that is, to give a quick update, that is the problem that's happening with this book, which I mentioned in my last video, which was supposed to be a daily log, which then turned into writing a page per day, generally not necessarily journal style, but just using my pen just to create letters. And I'm having trouble sticking with it. And I'm wondering why. And I'm thinking maybe it's too rigid, too strict, like having to do it every day. And I should expand the. Do I not have discipline? Even this trend of the analog bag I've seen feels like too much for me personally. Like I'd be scared to be caught out there with just my thumbs to twiddle. Now, I carry my earplugs, earphones, a little toy sometimes, but not much more than that. Sometimes a notebook. I've carried a book before, but what I find with me reading or working in public is I'm too distracted by everything else going around me. So it just kind of doesn't work for me. That's all I carry around with me. And honestly, I'd rather carry my phone with one app like Substack that I'll use intermittently than a whole bag of analog stuff that will just be more stress for me because now I've got to carry all this stuff around and be responsible for it. All of this feels a little bit like de-optimizing my life. The analog bag contains naught but the analog of my mind. And that's a hard thing to put into practice when everything is so available all of the time. And at the end of the day, it's just going to be me, it's just going to be you doing what you want, what brings you happiness and what brings you joy, and do it in a way that's not for anybody else or for anything that you think will be right. That last sentence, that was, strike that from the record. I'll read 4 books this year, or maybe I won't even get through 4. And so what? I like that I'm reading mostly every day, absent of a goal of moving on to the next one. Because sometimes in the nothing, there is quiet.